we are going to learn about getters and setters. So what getters and setters are actually like do mostly is because they are private. The getters and setters are by default and sometimes at some points public, but it's preferred to always that your getters and methods should always, and it's a good practice to have them as private. So because if you declare them public, then other classes would be able to access them. So let's try to create a scenario here. So let's say we have a football match. So let's create a class for maybe like class match. So we have class football. And then in this class, so we are not going to perform any inheritance. So we are just going to work with the getters and setters. So remember that the getters and setters help us fetch the private methods. So we're going to declare maybe like a private. So we're going to have private. So let's have a private referee. So private ref. And then so that should actually be a string. So let's call it maybe like string, sorry. So private, so string ref. And then we are going to have the public. The other attributes will now be public. So let's say maybe like the score. So let's say we have matches here. So we are performing different match score, and then maybe like we have the venue. So the venue should actually now be a string. So let's say string the venue, maybe for the field where the players will now be having their match. So we are going to say now let's just call it the field. Okay, so let's just say maybe like the match venue. So with that, we are already done with declaring our attributes. So the next thing we'd want now to do, because these are all now maybe like the attributes we need. So the next thing we want to do is we want to now maybe like create some maybe constructors. Okay, so maybe let's say now we have maybe gaming, and then of course we are going to pass in our first maybe like string, that's the ref. Then we have the score, and then we have the venue. Now so let's say string, then we have argument, maybe like match venue, and then we now do direct instantiation here. So we like take the value now and assign it to the value. So we are now going to say now that our ref will now have the value of a ref, and then now our score will be matched with the value of the argument that we are going to pass in. So that's the score. It's capital S, score. And then also we are going to have the match venue. So we're going to say now match venue. Then we're going to assign it as our argument of match venue. So we are now done with that. Now the next thing is we are going to create maybe like now. So let's have now maybe like a function here, maybe a function to choose the referee. So let's say we have different referees. Okay, so referees are the person who usually control the game. Now, but because it's private, so we are going to create its own method. So maybe like to choose from it. So we're going to say, because we expect to return maybe like not we want just to check. So then we are going to return something from the getter method. So we are going to pass now the string. So we now have this function here, the void. So let's say now choose the referee, choose ref. Then we are going to have a certain not certain, but we're going to use the if else now condition to actually like maybe like get to choose. And so we are going to pass in this argument here. So we have them the string here. So we are going to pass in this string that the argument, so the argument that the user is now going to pass in, so that we can now set it to this variable here. So we are going to say string, then you now pass in the name. So this the argument here must be equal to this argument, so that it can now match from this place. Now we can do some nesting if else to check. So we can say if the ref is equal to, so we can have this maybe like, so I'm just going to maybe like print some random names teams, then we're going to use the or operator, or the ref maybe equal to, let's say on, or again, so let's say now or the ref is equal to maybe somebody, maybe let's say Bakshi. So if this is the case, so if that is the case, then we are going to set this our ref condition, no, our ref argument to now the ref. Else we are going to set the ref to now maybe like the lead ref. So if we have none of these assisting refs, then the lead ref now, let's say James. So let's say James will now be the lead ref, so that when these other assistant refs referees are missing, then we can now use James by default as now the referee who is going to maybe like lead the match. Now once we are done with that, so we are going to say now we're going to create another, so let's say now like fetch the private attribute. So what this does is this function will now fetch the name of the referee. So we are going to say now, so we assigned it to maybe like choose referee from this string, choose ref. Then we are going to now return the referee. So because we are passing in a string, then we must of course return the ref here. Now our code is complete. So just to recap, we created the class football, then we add private string, then we add public. So these that comes under public here are now accessible outside our class. So one more remaining thing is, after we've created this private attribute, this is now the getter. So we call this one here the getter. So this, what this getter does is it fetches this string, and this string which has been now set to the argument here, and then it now returns it to this main function here, so that we can now call this other method. So let's say we now want to run our code. We might encounter now our setter not working because we have assigned it to something different. So to solve that, we now need to use this method here. So we are going to use this getter here. So instead of now passing in this the integer and setting it to the argument, we now paste our method here. And so remember that our method takes in the ref. So now everything is now set. So the ref will now be directly fetched from this. So we are assigning it to this argument here. We are assigning it to this the getter, and the getter, remember, returns the ref, and the ref here means that it will have to also like get its point from this place. So I think I forgot the semicolon there. Now everything is fine. Now into our main method. So what we are going to now do is we are going to call this method. So that is actually the football. So we're going to say football. Then we are going to pass in the argument. So let's say now our referee is teams. Then the next thing that after the string is an integer. So let's say the score was maybe like 40 scores. That's really a joke, because you won't score maybe like 40 goals. So then the venue, maybe now let's say we were playing it in maybe like Moi Kasarani. So Moi Kasarani is just one of the biggest footballs in maybe Kenya. So right now we are done with that, and then we are going to say maybe like gaming, so or games. So once we are done with that, we can now say maybe like games dot maybe like games dot maybe the match venue, or now we have these other methods. So we can say maybe the dot choose ref. So let's run this now. So no matching function called to football. So we have a problem here because we are using a different constructor. So remember when we talked about creating constructors, so you have to make sure that your actually class name matches the constructor name. So we're going to say football. And now, once we run our code, everything should now be working well. So we can now say football games, then maybe games, maybe now, if you now do this, now like games dot, now you see that we have this function here. So unlike the other part, so choose ref, then you enter your code there. So if you now run, you see now like, oops, it's okay, nothing is now like printed out. So we are actually like having an empty output because we didn't like just print out something here. So okay, so see out, then you will now have the output. So if you now run our code, you see now that we have teams printed as the new referee. So let's say we now entered something like maybe like Owino. So Owino is just a legal name in Kenya. So now let's say you entered Owino, so and run your code. You'll now see that we have the lead ref as James. Why? Because the condition was not met. So we actually like said here in CID that if the referee was either teams Owen or Bakshi, then set it to the names. That's the argument where the user passed in. Else, now sets it to the lead ref. So that means that the argument that the user entered was actually like not matching inside it. So now let's say fetch the private attributes now. So once we have this getter one, so this means that we are returning it now to the function. So and where are we returning this? We are returning it inside this the assignment. So we are now saying that now the ref, this ref, which we have already set it here by choosing it, you should now assign it to this arrow. So what was the main thing here was you to get understand how these getters are being used to fetch maybe the private values. So you can nest different private values and also have the getters and setters methods. But for now, that is all you maybe like to understand about the getters. So you can do research because getters and setters is actually like too wide. Then we'll get to finalize now with inheritance, class inheritance. So practice more, and I think that's all. So let's get started with actually the inheritance as our last part of the C++ programming.